Well, hey there, Scholarly Gamers, and welcome to this week's episode of Jungle Drums. I'm all on my own, I'm afraid. Last night things were a bit hectic, and it was too late to actually record it last night. And, of course, my guests who would have been on last night are otherwise indisposed today. But, hey, life goes on, right? So we're going to return back to normally scheduled programming and actually talk about some tech and gaming news this week. So first out of the traps is from TheVerge.com, and this is about Intel rolling out Spectre updates for 7th and 8th gen core chips. Remember the whole, vulnerability or exploitation, whatever you want to call it, was found in Intel processors, as well as a lot of AMDs. In fact, some of the AMD chips were affected by the fix in such a way that they were in an endless reboot. We actually had a system in the house that was affected by that. Well, it would have been affected by that, but luckily I didn't have it updated at the time. So basically, Intel has once again attempted to patch Spectre with a new rollout of patches, specifically targeting Kaby Lake, Coffee Lake, and Skylake based platforms. The updates, will basically cover the 6th, 7th, and 8th gen of Intel Core products, as well as the X series processor family. Xeon Scalable and Intel Xeon D processors for data centers, like servers and whatnot, will also be protected. Because, again, if you're not up to date on what had happened, Intel had previously issued a patch to address the Spectre vulnerability, but then it had to actually tell users to stop using the fix because it sometimes was causing these reboots, which is not very good, especially if we're talking about businesses. If we're talking about deploying this in a corporate environment, where, come on, let's be honest, time is money in most businesses. You don't want to be spending that time in constant reboots. So basically, the executive vice president of Intel had recommended that users just skip that fix, until a better version could be deployed, which allegedly this new fix is the one to go with. It's a bit of a raw deal, or a soft spot for Intel, because this patch is basically 2 months after these flaws were exposed publicly. Now keep in mind that that's publicly. These flaws were actually discovered last year, I think more towards the middle and later part of 2017, but of course the public, we didn't know about them until they actually came out and said, oh yeah, we've got some issues, and then even then, when they first publicly announced the Spectre vulnerability, they really played down these flaws. They're saying, oh look, it's no big deal. The average computer user isn't really going to be affected. It's not significant. And it's actually taken this long to basically address this issue in a way that seems to work. Me personally, on my system, I use a 4th gen Intel i7 4790K, and initially I didn't have any real issues until they deployed a fix, and the fix had broken a few things, specifically to do with my motherboard. I have monitoring software, for my temperatures, for my voltages, because I do overclock a little bit, and it basically had not killed it. The components were still reporting these values, and also my fan control is I use that software to control the speed of my fans and whatnot. So all of that stuff was still working. The fans were ramping up when they were supposed to, but the GUI, the graphical user interface for that software, was just completely broke. It wouldn't open. But now that has been rectified with the latest bout of patches. So there you go. You should be safe to update. If you've been holding off because it has been breaking things, now might be the time to actually deploy the fix on your own home system. And we'll just have to see as time goes on how this is going to affect Intel processors. With any luck, the next gen of chips won't have these issues, won't require these fixes. But it definitely sucks for a lot of us, who already have computers, and especially in the corporate world. I mean, deploying these types of fixes is, labor intensive. It costs money because you have to take the system down. You can't conduct your normal day-to-day business, so it's a big deal. It sounds minor, but it really is quite a big deal. Speaking of big deals, there's one game that has been a big deal since it came out, and of course that is Blizzard's first-person shooter, team-based game, Overwatch. So this headline comes from GameSpot, and this is about the Overwatch League skins. They will soon be obtainable in a new way. Yeah, that's right. To coincide with the launch of the Overwatch League, Blizzard had released a big update that introduced a ton of new League-themed skills. But unlike any other skin in the game, these could only be obtained by purchasing them. Which was supposed to be a way to generate revenue that could be then shared with those teams. So, it was a good idea. I mean, let's be honest, it's great. I don't know whether that was going to be going directly to the teams or if it was going to be put in the pool for, league winnings. I'm really not sure. But either way, it's a decent arrangement. Rainbow Six Siege does a similar thing with weapon charms for the Pro League teams, where you can buy one, using real money, or using, the credits that you have to purchase with real money in order to support that team. Again, I'm not sure if Rainbow Six Siege gives that money directly to the teams, or if it's just a way of generating more revenue for the pool itself, for the winnings for tournaments. But basically, with Overwatch, there's going to soon be a new way to get your hands on these skins without paying for them. Twitch, which of course owns the broadcast rights to Overwatch League, has partnered with Blizzard to reward these League skins to viewers through what they're calling Overwatch tokens. This is a new type of currency that is going to be introduced with these League skins. And so each skin is going to cost about 100 tokens, or about $5 US, right? If you were to buy one of the bundles. But basically, when you watch Overwatch League on Twitch, you'll get one token for each live map finish you view. It's a free bonus for those already watching, and a small incentive to others in order to give this esport a chance. So, one token per match is by no means huge. It's going to be take you quite a while to amass 100 tokens just to purchase one skin. But hey, if you think that is a pretty crazy grind, there's potential for something a little bit extra. If you watch the end of the final match during a live broadcast, it will enter you in the running to win 100 tokens. Twitch is saying that only a percentage of viewers will randomly win that prize, and they're not being very specific, on how many prizes will be awarded. Token rewards are only going to be available to PC, PS4, and Xbox One players in the US, UK, Canada, Argentina, Chile, Denmark, France, Germany, New Zealand, Norway, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and Taiwan. To qualify, you will need to connect your Battle.net account with Twitch, and you can watch, I believe you can also watch them on MLG.com and OverwatchLeague.com. You can watch the matches there. So there you go. Twitch has also announced the Overwatch League cheering, which is going to allow viewers to spend bits purchased with real-world money to support teams and players. This, in turn, can unlock in-game hero skins that will be exclusive for a period of time, as well as emotes and team-branded items. So there you go. Stage 2 of the Overwatch League just kicked off a couple of days ago, February 21st. So you should be able to catch it right now. If you're really in Overwatch, there's a good chance that you watch the league anyway. I know with a lot of competitive shooters, it's quite a good idea to watch the pro leagues we do it on Siege quite a bit, me and my friends, because it's you just see, some of the techniques and tactics that folk use, at that much higher level of gaming, and sometimes just stuff that you never really thought of, or you go, oh man, just the quality of some of the players is just crazy sometimes. So it is. Oh, I've got a page that died on me. There we go. Right, so let's go from gaming back to a little bit of tech. Quite often I use a website called Video Cards with a Z or a Z, depending where you are, .com. They're quite good at getting leaks and bits of intel, stuff quite early before other folk. And this is about the new Coffee Lake CPUs already being in stock, and they're already shipping. Basically, the next 2 months is going to be filled with CPU and motherboard releases. The Coffee Lake platform itself is still relatively new, and it's going to be getting a lot more chips coming out. These are mainstream chips I'm looking at here. We're looking at a couple of i5s, an i3, a couple of Pentium Golds, and a couple of Celerons. What is quite interesting is the price range of these chips. When we look at the i5s, they've got an i5 8600, which is going to be around $220 US. Now, the i5 8600, obviously that's cheaper. They've already got the 8600K out. Of course, the K signifies it's unlocked, so it makes it easier to overclock. The 8600 non-K is going to be, it's got a base clock of 3.1 gigahertz. It doesn't have, we don't have any information on what the turbo clock is. Keep in mind that is about 5.5 gigahertz lower than the K version. So a little bit of decreased performance there, but $220 for an Intel 6-core chip is pretty good. Remember, the i5 is a 6-core now, but it doesn't have hyper-threading, so it's just 6 threads as well. The i3 8300 is a decent 4-core chip, also without hyper-threading. The i3 is going to be priced around $135 US. So $135 for a quad core is pretty darn decent. It also comes with a base clock of 3.7 gigahertz, which, for most of your gaming needs, the new i3s are probably going to be pretty darn good. The i5 is going to be better, for a little bit of productivity and whatnot, and then obviously the i7s, which are a completely different price league, with 6 cores and 12 threads, are just great for productivity, whether that's streaming, whether that's content creation, YouTube videos and whatnot. But the i3 is a nice, relatively inexpensive option, because keep in mind, you could build a system, and if you only have the money for the i3 now, slap that bad boy in, and then maybe later down the line you might get a deal, you might be able to trade in, sell your i3, get an i5, and then likewise maybe step up to an i7. Of course, the only problem is if you do that, by the time you finally get what you wanted, there's going to be new stuff out anyway. And that's one of the issues with computer hardware. You need to, there's no point in buying the biggest, baddest, best thing out, because there's a good chance you're going to have buyer's remorse. It's not going to be very long till it's outdated or something newer, faster, and shinier comes out. If you've got the money, yeah, go for it. But for most of us, that's why it's always a good idea to kind of compromise. Say, okay, this is how much I want to spend, this is how much performance I want, and that is going to do me just fine. My system is made of components that are relatively quite old, several years, but it still does everything I need it to. Would something new, faster, and shinier be better for me? Well, maybe. It'd be nice, but it wouldn't necessarily be the best fit. The Pentium chips, they're all dual cores, but with hyper-threading. So there's 2 cores, 4 threads, and they're all under $100. They've got Pentium Gold G5600, which is about $93 US. That's coming at a clock rate of 3.9 gigahertz. These are really good bargain chips as well. But to be honest, hey, if you can spring another $40 to get the i3, it's probably a better option. And then of course the Celerons, you know, are just 2-core, 2-threaded chips, only just around 3 gigahertz speed-wise, but you're looking at about $50 for those. So those are good, really inexpensive options, but probably not the best for performance and whatnot. Right, got another article here from GameSpot, and this is to do with Assassin's Creed Origins. And I found this quite interesting. Now, you know, we know that the Discovery Tour mode had came out in Assassin's Creed Origins, and one of my buddies was going on about it, saying, oh, you know, it's really, really quite cool. It's really neat and interesting. But there's something else that has came to Assassin's Creed Origins, and that, of course, is New Game Plus. So, you know, there's a lot of games that have had New Game Pluses. I mean, obviously, you think of the Dark Souls series. One of my favorites, Dragon's Dogma, which, you know, Dragon's Dogma, the game actually really began in the New Game Plus. Like, you played through it, and then it starts from the beginning, and then everything kind of clicks. The story makes sense. You're like, oh, whoa, holy crap, mind blown. And each time you go to a New Game Plus in Dragon's Dogma, the game gets progressively more difficult, you know, and more challenging. So it's definitely New Game Pluses. Sorry, just trying to see what was going on with my. I couldn't hear my music here. My music has been quiet on me. I don't know why. That would be why. My audio had actually turned off. Because, you know, I'm plugged into an X-Rocker chair, and for some reason it decided to just turn itself off. Sorry about that. Right, so, yeah, New Game Plus, right? So, I mean, a Dragon's Dogma must have got to like 20-something plus, but anyway. In Assassin's Creed Origins, they have added a New Game Plus mode, which was just added on February 20th. Once you beat the main story, you can create a NG Plus, New Game Plus save, and keep all of your existing progression, including, you know, weapons, outfits, abilities, XP, inventory items, crafting materials, tools, and of course your actual character's level. But some things aren't going to carry over, like maps, discover territories, quest completion status, and Senu's perception level. All activities tied to progression are reset, so things like Trials of the Gods and the Hippodrome won't be available until you unlock them again, you know, as part of the normal progression. What they're saying, you know, I don't have Origins yet, I still haven't actually beat Syndicate, I need to sit down and do that sometime, but Monster Hunter World has just taken over things. But, you know, basically what they're saying is with this New Game Plus for Assassin's Creed Origins, the experience is going to be much more difficult. You know, easy goes to normal, normal goes to hard. Enemy scaling is on by default in New Game Plus, but you can deactivate it if you want. Now, what's the point of New Game Plus, you ask? Well, allegedly there's going to be a unique reward for when you beat the New Game Plus version of the game, but Ubisoft is keeping this a surprise for now. The second and final expansion for Origins, which is titled The Curse of the Pharaohs, is going to be coming out in March for all platforms. But there is going to be an update on February 27th, just next week, that is going to include a new quest, Lights Among the Dunes, that is going to serve as an expansion, an introduction before the actual full expansion lands on March 6th, which we'll see if it hits that date or not. Origins does look like a fantastic game. Remember, we've got a great Assassin's Creed Origins review here on the website at scholarlygamers.com. It's a game that I really, really do want to play. I just, you know, call it OCD, call it whatever you want. I refuse to play it until I've beaten Syndicate. I've done that with all the Assassin's Creed games. I've been a huge fan of them, played every single one of them. And unfortunately, I've never beaten Syndicate because of other games getting in the way. But yes, I'll definitely check that out sometime. So if you have Origins, there you go. Beat the game, and then you can try a New Game Plus mode. Right, a little bit of tech again. Now, this is sourced from wired.co.uk, and this is about game streaming, right? A streaming service. Now, we don't mean streaming like Twitch, Mixer, and whatnot, but, actual being able to stream, using the hardware somewhere else, remote hardware to play games. And there's quite a few of these services kicking about, but there's a new one, streaming service Shadow, and the headline is what caught my attention here. This streaming startup wants to make high-end PCs obsolete. Is that even possible? Excuse me. The whole game streaming issue, there's a lot of things at play here when it comes to, your hardware, the hardware that they've got, latency, software. There's been quite a few companies that have tried and failed. And a lot of them have just kind of fallen apart. There's still plenty out there that are doing well, and of course they're trying to improve. Nvidia's own service seems like it's really going to be going places. But there's a little company called Blade, which is a French startup company. And at a glance, basically it looks like, okay, it's the same thing. A cloud-based service, tailor-made, for delivering games to an audience, that wants to leave their consoles and physical purchases behind and, just play games on demand. But Shadow isn't actually a gaming provider at all. It's an entire high-end PC streamed from the cloud. So this is the quote, right? It says, "It's exactly like a computer. You put your username and password in, there's two-factor authentication on your phone, and you arrive on a normal Windows computer. You're free to use it as a normal computer. Alter settings, you can see the graphic card specs, everything. You can even load and unload drivers. It's your own computer. You can do exactly as you'd like to do. Photoshop, high-end games, everything." Okay, so now this is a little bit different from these other services. Now, it's interesting because at school, we have this type of system where, for example, in some of the classes like cybersecurity, ethical hacking and computer forensics, it would be a bit unsafe to let us just go rampant with the actual, computers at school. Yes, you go to some universities and they have a nice, clever way of isolating these, and after you're actually done with your work, it automatically wipes the system, and it's protected from, the school's network in such a way. But the school I'm at right now doesn't have all those nice features. So what we use is these services where basically we're connecting to a remote virtual machine, which is in a completely isolated and safe environment. And it's quite funny because you're just sitting at a computer, but yes, you're logging in remotely to another computer. So it's interesting. So, we have these game streaming services, which is really just playing a game remotely. But this is going to actually enable you to, use a high-end gaming, just a high-end computer for your needs. So it's going to be available on a subscription basis. Prices in our money over here in the UK is about £26.95 British pounds a month for a 12-month contract. So it sounds interesting. At the minute, their system configuration is a GTX 1080 GPU, an 8-thread Intel Xeon processor, which isn't really aimed at gaming per se. I mean, you'll do okay. Yeah, I mean, an 8-thread Xeon will do the business, I suppose. 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. More storage can be added for an additional fee. But yeah, I mean, so it is a good enough spec to run most games and software, absolutely. And Blade is promising to provide regular upgrades to keep those machines up to scratch. So, pretty cool. But there's something that's quite neat here. Let me get this image up. If I just show this here, right? Quite an interesting little black box with some red LEDs on it. This is one of their products. Blades, they're calling it the Shadow Box. And the Shadow Box is basically a gadget. It's got the sublights. It's It's got 4 USB ports, headphone and microphone jacks, and 2 display ports. It basically looks like one of those Steam machines, or a micro PC. There's almost nothing inside it, though. It's basically a delivery mechanism for the virtualized machine that, lives through their service. It sounds interesting. Shadow, they're not trying to sell you a gaming ecosystem, they're saying here, or a separate storefront. You'll still buy all your games privately, whether that's through Steam or GOG, Uplay, whoever else you use. It sounds interesting. You can do whatever you want. So you have this box, you can plug in your controllers or keyboards, printers, it's even got an Ethernet port, so you can just, do the same kind of networking you would have on a normal computer. It's quite interesting. So their goal really is to replace your computer. Instead of having your big PC that you're constantly upgrading, you get this shadow box, which never needs to be upgraded. You can buy new keyboards and new mice and whatnot, but the hardware will be, remote. It'll be with them, and they might upgrade it, or possibly maybe even, give you the opportunity. Oh, I want to pay an extra five quid a month. Give me, 2 1080s and SLI. Sounds quite interesting. The author of the article was saying he was playing games like Rise of the Tomb Raider, The Witcher 3, and yeah, there was zero lag. It was all in full HD. He switched on his phone app, synced up a controller through Bluetooth, and continued playing. Oh wow, okay. Now that's even more interesting. The experience was stable even on a 4G connection. Shadow also supports 4K gaming on compatible screens. I'm going to definitely give this... I'm going to keep tabs on this, because I'm interested to see how they're going to do, if they're going to succeed, because the concept's quite cool, right? Where you pay the subscription, you get this box, which, think about it, if it's quite small, there's nothing in there, so that could just take up your space, but then you could just use it like a normal computer, not just to play games, but for everything, to do your Photoshop, to do your video editing. That sounds pretty darn cool. Because Shadow lives on the cloud, access can be delivered via apps and other platforms. It's already available for Android, so phones, tablets, smart TVs, and Blade's providing desktop apps for Mac and Windows. The only actual requirement is that you need an internet connection. So just think about it. You could be running a full Windows 10 desktop on Mac without having to use stuff like Boot Camp. Wow, yeah, that is pretty neat. Or you could have a really low-end laptop, a really, really cheap thing, but by using their stuff, you'd have remote access to a powerhouse of a PC. Yeah, I think that might actually do quite well. We'll have to see. Now, obviously, that's a French startup, so I think it's more aimed at us over here in Europe. I cannot confirm or deny whether latency, if you're over in North America, would be an issue or not. But it sounds like for us over here in the UK, that might be quite a cool little feature. Speaking of cool little features, another bit of news that just popped up this week was to do with Microsoft, and of course Microsoft Mixer. This is sourced from techradar.com, and this is now talking about Microsoft is tempting Twitch users by making it easier for streamers to make money. Now, we know on Twitch, you have the ability to purchase games directly whilst watching a stream, which used to be, when it first came out, it was only to select partners. Then it rolled out to all partners. Then I believe they started rolling out to affiliates, and so on and so forth. Now, this isn't a case of Mixer trying to copy Twitch. Mixer had announced plans to do this ages ago. It was always going to be on the cards for them. So basically, now they have finally done it in such a way, though, that you can tell it's really, really aimed more at Xbox users. The system's very similar to Twitch, but Microsoft's taken a different angle. They're using a much wider scope which the way this article's worded is in a bid to tempt users away from Twitch. But what they're calling it is Mixer Direct Purchase. And basically that lets a viewer purchase a game or a piece of DLC right on the streamer's channel page directly within Mixer. This happens seamlessly, right? There's no need for codes or an activation process. The content is automatically added to the purchaser's Xbox or Windows 10 game library. The streamer, now this is what's interesting, because keep in mind that it's not going to be limited just to partners or anything. It'll be anyone who's streaming that game are going to get a slice of the revenue, 5% of each purchase. So there you go. If you see someone streaming Monster Hunter World and it's a game that you've been on the fence, you're not sure about if you want to get it or not, and you decide, I'm going to go ahead and buy this. If you buy it directly through the Mixer Direct Purchase, not only will you get the game, but hey, you're also going to be given 5% of that purchase to the streamer themselves, which I know they will greatly appreciate. So it's going to be quite interesting. Microsoft's also talking about providing a number of promotional options for streamers, which will include the ability to promote the base game or a special deluxe edition or a bundle. So pretty neat. I mean, Twitch obviously does a 5% cut as well, but it's only available to partners and affiliates. And it can only be utilized with games from specific publishers. Whereas on the Mixer side of things, this program is going to be open to anyone. It is initially only going to be available to partners. The broader rollout isn't going to be happening for a couple more months, which, you expect. I mean, they're going to be testing it out, see if everything's working, make sure there's no issues before they roll it out to everybody. Because, with partners, they have a partnership manager. It's much easier, to rectify issues, and they can give them that feedback that they need. So it's quite cool. Yes, I mean, they use the articles being a bit inflammatory, trying to talk about competition and whatnot. I mean, the way they've worded it, yes, Mixer has a long way to catch up with Twitch. Yes, I mean, the viewers, the level of viewership on Mixer is, it's much, much lower than Twitch. I mean, of course it is. But, there's a lot of really cool features on Mixer, things like the faster than light technology, zero latency. There is absolutely no delay. The multiplayer co-streaming, where you can, up to 4 people can co-stream, and if you go to any of those streamers' pages, you see all 4 streams, and then all 4 chats are unified into the one chat. That's an amazing feature, and it really suits games like Sea of Thieves, Monster Hunter World, The Division, where you can watch a stream and get all the different points of view. And then, of course, there's the interactivity, of course, as well, with the buttons that you have at the bottom that you can use your sparks to do different actions. And then some games you can actually control aspects of the games, like the Telltale games, and, of course, Minecraft. But right, that is it for this week. We'll have to see what kind of tasty news comes up next time. I haven't felt so bad about not doing the news, actually, for the last couple of weeks, because there hasn't been that much really going on. There was the release of the Ryzen APUs, which are the special processors, the one that have integrated graphics. And I wanted to cover those, but I'm going to hold off because they're still having issues. The early samples were all sent out to some of the big tech tubers, and sure enough, the drivers weren't ready. It has been an exceedingly frustrating process trying to get these things to run and work correctly. So they're addressing those issues, and hopefully relatively soon we'll have a bit more information on how they stack up, because if the graphics are good enough, that's a nice little cheap option, especially for making like a micro PC or a slim PC. Instead of having to have the space for a big graphics card, if you can just put an APU in, which of course is the size of a normal processor, it can make up for some interesting builds. Well, anyway, that is us for this week. As always, make sure to check out the rest of the website, whether it's reviews, articles, video content. Obviously, this week we had a new episode of Streaming Fundamentals drop. Keep an eye out. Next week, there'll be a new episode of Armchair Gaming. and we should have some reviews coming up on the site relatively shortly. I think I'm going to go ahead and write one as well. I need to dust off the old typing fingers. Well, anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Take it easy.